Hi everybody, welcome back to Mando Lessons. This is the first lesson in a series I'm going to be doing on thinking about modes. Modes are just kind of different types of scale. A lot of people think of the major scale and the minor scale, or in folk music you'll think of modal tunes, and all this is relating to what are called modes. So I'm going to be talking about those and really working on relating those to traditional fiddle music from a couple different styles, Irish and old time. So if that's something you're interested in, keep watching. If you are more interested in learning some tunes or songs or other lessons that'll teach you more kind of hands-on things about the mandolin, check out mandolessons.com. I've got a bunch of free material over there. Lessons that teach tunes, play-along tracks, tablature, standard notation. It's all free to watch and read and listen to. There's a couple ways to donate, which is always appreciated, but not required. So let's get back into thinking about modes. So what modes are is, like I was saying earlier, there's different types of scale. You might be familiar with a major scale. That's a C major scale. That's kind of all the white keys on a keyboard, piano. None of the black keys. It's all white. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No sharps, no flats. C major. Now, you also might think of a minor scale, which might sound like this. Much sadder sounding. And that is an A minor scale. It's technically, in sort of the Greek wording, it's called the Aeolian scale. So it's not, there's a couple different kinds of minor scales. So technically that's the Aeolian scale. And what that is that's also all of the white keys on a keyboard. So if you took your C major scale on a keyboard and went down 3 notes, C, B, A, and start there and go from that A to the next A up and back down, you get that minor sound. You're still using all the white notes on a keyboard, but you're just starting and ending on A. And you get that very different sound. You get that minor sound versus the C major, which is... And the Greek word for that scale, that major scale or mode, is Ionian. So that's sort of like the basis of how you get to different scales. So you can find there's 7 different scales, and they just all, if you're thinking about that white keys on the piano again, you'll have starting on a C and going to C, you get major. You start on D. Also sounds very minor. It's a slightly different minor scale than your A minor scale on all the white keys. So this D minor scale is Dorian. And as you go through, starting on E, starting on F, starting on G, starting on A, and using those as your tonal centers, you get different sounds and different flavors of scale. And they all have their own names and their own feels. So rather than jump into what all those are, I'm going to talk a little bit about how they relate to folk music. So especially in the Irish tradition, a lot of tunes are based around the key of D. And that's because of instruments like this. This is a penny whistle, or also the keyless flute or the uilleann pipes, the Irish pipes, are all kind of based around a D scale. It's the sort of the scale you get, rather than if you think about a piano with all the white keys on a piano, you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. On this, you have the key of D. So if I'm not a penny whistle player by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll try to play just a simple scale here, and it's going to come out in the key of D. So So there it is. It's a D scale. And playing that on the mandolin. That starts on that open D string. So that's your D major scale. Again, playing the simple scale on a penny whistle or the Irish pipes, or a keyless Irish, maybe an Irish wooden flute, you get a D major scale. And so most of the Irish repertoire is based around that scale, and it uses that range. So a lot of Irish tunes won't go below that lowest, or that D string on your mandolin, and they can go a little higher than that D there. A lot of times they'll go up to the B above that. So you have that D scale, and then it continues up from there up to the 7th fret on the E string. That's a B. And that's sort of the range that the vast majority of Irish tunes are in. So it's really kind of a pretty condensed space. You're never using that G string. It's about an octave and a half, a little over an octave and a half. And you get countless, kind of endless tunes just out of those notes. So using that D scale and then thinking about modes. So the way that I think about it is with that D scale, that's sort of like your all white keys on the keyboard. And rather than getting a C scale out of that, if you play all the white keys or all the easy notes to hit on a whistle or the pipes, you get a D major scale rather than a C major scale. So when you're doing that, you have, rather than having no sharps or flats, if you're thinking about the notes, you have D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D again. So you have F sharps and C sharps. So those are sort of that's the basic. That's sort of maybe you can think of it as like your root white keys. If you're thinking about a piano, I'm kind of mixing my metaphors with pianos and whistles. But that's your sort of go-to scale, is that D major scale. And then what you'll find is that not all Irish tunes are in the key of D, but they're often in modes of D. So another really common key in Irish music is often called E modal, or E minor. And what they're usually talking about when you're in the key of E and playing Irish tunes is you're talking about the second mode. So you have D major or Ionian, and then you play those same notes but starting on an E. So you have E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, and you get this very minor sound. And that's how you get tunes like Swallowtail Jig. There we go. Sorry, it took me a little bit to get into that one. So that's still using all of your kind of easy to grab notes on a whistle. But you're just starting and ending on E. And so you're using all the same notes in D, but just starting and ending on E. And you'll get you can get a couple different scales that you'll find a lot in Irish music, just using the notes of a D major scale, but starting in different places. So I just talked about E Dorian, which will be called E minor or E modal in the folk music scene, but the sort of theory correct term is E Dorian. And then you also might find an A minor or technically it's an A mixolydian scale, but you're using the notes of a D scale, so you've got those C sharps and F sharps, but you're starting and ending on A, so it sounds like this. Sounds very major at first. it's straight up major scale, but then you get this sort of bluesy flatted G, regular A major, and the A mixolydian, which is based out of the D major scale, is that G natural, 3rd fret on the E string. Or you can go down if you've got a mandolin and not a whistle. You've got that lower octave as well. So that's an A major, that's an A scale using the notes of a D major scale. So you get A mixolydian. And the other scale you'll find often using just the bass root of a D major scale on a whistle is a B minor scale. And that's a different minor than the E minor. The E minor was a Dorian. And this is an Aeolian B minor, which was like that A minor in C. We're using B minor in D. So starting on the B, and again you can do that in the lower octave. If you're on a mandolin and an instrument that goes that low. So that's sort of the folk music way that, I really think about it as D, especially in Irish music. D is your sort of home key, and then you're starting and ending on different notes of the D scale to get different modes and different sort of flavors to your scales, whether it's an E Dorian or an A mixolydian or a B minor. And that's never using anything, there's no kind of what we might think of as accidentals at that point. It's always D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. And you've got a couple different scales that you can get and sounds you can get right out of that sort of bass home key of D major. So that's probably a good place to stop for this first lesson. You can go to my website, mandolessons.com, and you can sort all the fiddle tunes. I've got probably over 100 fiddle tunes at this point. You can sort them all by key, and in there I write them. They can be sorted by, you can see all the D major scales, or the E Dorian or A mixolydian tunes, and just look through those and maybe listen to a couple, sort of get a sense of what they sound like. And all of those that I've talked about in this lesson are just based off of the D major scale. In the next lesson, I'm going to start talking about the G major scale and how that relates to the penny whistle and the other modes you can get out of a G major scale. So stay tuned for part 2 of this series. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.